The marble floors gleamed under my mop as I worked quietly in the corner of the grand hall. Around me, volunteers hustled to prepare for tonight's annual animal shelter fundraiser, hanging crystal chandeliers and arranging elaborate flower centerpieces. I kept my head down, methodically cleaning each tile, listening to Amanda Wilson, the shelter's director, bark orders at everyone within earshot. No, 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 the champagne fountain goes by the weeest wall. And where are those gold chairs I specifically ordered? Her voice carried that particular tone of superiority I'd grown familiar with over the past 3 months. We have $1 million donors coming tonight. Everything must be perfect. I moved my mop carefully around a stack of chairs, making sure not to splash any water. My simple gray uniform blended perfectly with the background, making me nearly invisible to the frantic volunteers and event planners rushing past. "You there, cleaning lady." Amanda's sharp voice cut through the chaos. I looked up to see her striding toward me, designer heels clicking against the freshly mopped floor. "Once you're done here, the bathrooms need attention. And please use the service entrance from now on. We can't have the help coming through the main doors during the event." I nodded politely, suppressing a smile. "Of course, Ms. Wilson." She paused, scrutinizing my face. "Have we met before? You look familiar." "I've been cleaning here for 3 months," I replied simply. Right. She waved dismissively. "Just make sure everything's spotless. The mayor's coming tonight, and we need to secure that city funding." If only she knew. As I worked, my mind wandered to 6 months ago, when I first visited the shelter. I just inherited my grandmother's estate, a fact I'd kept quiet from the public. The shelter had been struggling then, desperately needing renovations and better medical equipment for the animals. I'd spent weeks observing, coming in as a potential volunteer, watching how they treated both the animals and their staff. Amanda had been just as condescending then, though she'd at least bothered to learn my name during the volunteer orientation. That was before I'd started coming in my cleaning uniform, before I decided to really understand how the shelter operated from the ground up. "Hey, careful with that." Amanda's voice rang out again. This time she was scolding a young volunteer who'd nearly dropped a box of wine glasses. "Those cost more than you make in a month." The girl's eyes welled up with tears, her hands shaking as she set the box down. I waited until Amanda stormed off before approaching. "Don't let her get to you," I said softly, helping steady the box. "Some people forget their humanity when they think they have power." The girl, whose name I read Sophie, gave me a grateful smile. "Thanks, I'm just trying to help the animals, you know. But sometimes it feels like this place cares more about impressing donors than actual animal welfare." "Things will change," I assured her, returning to my mop. By late afternoon, the hall had transformed into a glittering showcase. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandeliers, elegant table settings awaited the city's elite, and the stage was set for tonight's big announcement. "You need to leave now," Amanda instructed me as I finished the last section of floor. "The guests will start arriving soon, and we can't have cleaning staff around. Use the back door." I gathered my cleaning supplies, heading toward the service entrance as instructed. In my locker, hidden beneath my gray uniform, hung a sleek black evening gown and a small clutch containing my invitation. In 3 hours, the building would light up with my name, announcing the largest private donation in the shelter's history. But more importantly, it would announce a change in leadership and a complete restructuring of how the shelter operated. I smiled, thinking of Amanda's face when she realized the cleaning lady she'd been ordering around was actually Catherine Parker, her new boss and the shelter's primary benefactor. Sometimes the best way to understand how to fix a broken system is to view it from the bottom up. As I left through the back door, I heard Amanda's voice one last time. "Remember everyone, tonight we smile at all costs. These rich donors hold our future in their hands." 3 hours later, I stood in front of my full-length mirror, hardly recognizing myself. The black evening gown hugged my curves perfectly, a far cry from the shapeless gray uniform I'd worn all day. My grandmother's pearl necklace graced my neck, and my usually tied back hair now fell in elegant waves around my shoulders. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, my grandmother's longtime lawyer and trusted friend. "Everything's ready. Board members will arrive at 7 p.m. sharp. Ready to give Amanda the surprise of her life?" I smiled, typing back, "See you there." The transformation from cleaning lady to benefactor wasn't just about the clothes. It was about exposing a system that valued appearance over substance, donations over actual care. During my 3 months of undercover work, I documented everything: the misallocation of funds, the poor treatment of staff and volunteers, the corners cut in animal care while money was poured into lavish fundraisers. When I arrived at the shelter, the parking lot was filled with luxury cars. I handed my keys to the valet, the same young man who'd seen me leaving through the service entrance hours earlier. His eyes widened in recognition, but I put a finger to my lips with a wink. Inside, the grand hall buzzed with Seattle's elite. Crystal glasses clinked, jewelry sparkled, and fake laughter echoed off the marble floors I'd mopped that morning. Amanda stood near the entrance, greeting guests in a red designer dress, her smile practiced and perfect. Her eyes slid right past me as I entered. After all, she'd never really looked at me before. Why start now? I watched her fawn over various donors, dropping hints about naming opportunities and tax benefits. Catherine, Marcus appeared at my side, champagne flutes in hand. The board members are all here. They're quite interested in meeting the mysterious benefactor who's been communicating only through me these past months. I accepted the champagne, observing the room. Sophie, the young volunteer from earlier, was serving hors d'oeuvres. She nearly dropped her tray when she saw me, but I gave her a reassuring smile. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda's voice rang out across the hall. If you'll all take your seats, we have an exciting announcement about the future of our beloved shelter. The guests moved toward their tables. I noticed Amanda had seated herself at the prime table with the mayor and other VIPs. My assigned table was near the back. Clearly, she hadn't made the connection between Catherine Parker, the major donor mentioned in the program, and Catherine Parker, the cleaning lady. For 15 years, Amanda began her speech. I've had the privilege of leading this shelter. Tonight, we're here to secure its future. We have a very special anonymous donor who has pledged a historic contribution. I caught Marcus's eye. He nodded slightly and slipped out of the room. This generous donation, Amanda continued, will ensure that our shelter remains the most prestigious in Seattle. Prestigious, not most effective, not most compassionate. Prestigious. I thought of all the corners cut on medical care while money went to granite countertops and designer furniture for the administrative offices. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. Amanda faltered in her speech. "What's happening?" she hissed to a nearby staff member. The exterior lights of the building flickered to life, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The assembled crowd gasped as words appeared, projected in elegant script across the shelter's facade. The Catherine Parker Animal Welfare Center. Below it, in smaller text, "Where compassion meets care." Amanda's face went pale. Her eyes darted around the room, finally landing on me as I stood up. "Thank you, Amanda," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent room. "But I believe this is my announcement to make." "You," she stammered. "But you're the cleaning lady." I smiled, walking toward the stage. Yes, I was. The best way to understand a broken system is to experience it from the ground up. The room erupted in whispers as I took the microphone. Sophie, still holding her serving tray, beamed at me from the corner. "For the past 3 months, I've worked here as a member of the cleaning staff," I continued. "What I saw convinced me that this shelter doesn't just need money. It needs a complete transformation. As of tonight, with the board's approval, I'm not just making a donation, I'm taking over as executive director." Amanda's knees buckled, and she had to grab a chair for support. In the crowd, I saw several board members nodding in approval. They'd seen the documentation Marcus had provided, the evidence of mismanagement and misplaced priorities. The Catherine Parker Animal Welfare Center will be a place where every creature, human or animal, is treated with dignity and respect, I announced, where we value care over appearance, compassion over prestige, and where no one, not even the cleaning staff, is invisible. The room burst into applause. As I stood there, I caught Sophie's eye again and gestured for her to join me. "Starting tomorrow," I said, "Sophie here will be our new volunteer coordinator, because she, like many others, never forgot what this place is really about, the animals." Amanda remained frozen in her chair, her perfectly practiced smile nowhere to be seen. Sometimes the best lessons come when you least expect them, and from people you never bothered to really see. The following morning, I arrived early at the shelter, wearing a simple but professional blue dress. The Catherine Parker Animal Welfare Center sign glowed softly in the dawn light, promising a new beginning. As I approached the main entrance, no more service doors for anyone, I heard familiar voices inside. Amanda was at her desk, hastily packing her personal items into a cardboard box. Her mascara was smeared, her perfectly styled hair from last night now disheveled. "You can't do this," she hissed when she saw me. "I built this place. 15 years of my life." "You built a facade," I replied calmly, setting my bag down. "Would you like to see the numbers? The records showing how much was spent on galas versus actual animal care? Or perhaps the staff turnover rates?" She slumped into her chair. "You don't understand. Those galas brought in the money we needed." "No, you didn't understand," I corrected her. "Real change doesn't come from champagne fountains and crystal chandeliers. It comes from genuine care and dedication." As if on cue, Sophie walked in, carrying a stack of new volunteer applications. "Miss Parker, we've already received 30 new volunteer applications since last night. People are excited about the changes." Amanda watched our interaction with narrowed eyes. "They're only here because of your money." I turned to her. "Actually, they're here because for the first time, they feel this place will truly prioritize animal welfare over social status." "You have two choices, Amanda. You can leave quietly with a decent recommendation, or we can dive deeper into those financial records I mentioned." She stared at me for a long moment before grabbing her box and walking out, her designer heels clicking for the last time on the marble floors. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. I met with the staff, assuring them their jobs were secure, with raises for those who'd been underpaid. The only significant changes would be in management and priorities. By midday, I was in the kennel area, wearing jeans and a shelter t-shirt, helping volunteers clean cages. The dogs barked excitedly, perhaps sensing the shift in energy. "Miss Parker," one of the veterinary technicians approached, holding a tablet. "I have the supply list you requested, the things we've needed for months." "Order everything," I said immediately, "and please call me Catherine." As I worked alongside the staff, I shared my vision. The marble floors would be replaced with more practical, pet-friendly surfaces. The elaborate office furniture would be sold, with proceeds going to medical equipment. The monthly galas would be replaced with community adoption events and educational programs. "But what about the donors?" someone asked worriedly. I smiled, scratching behind the ears of a senior dog who'd been at the shelter far too long. "Real donors care about results, not fancy parties. Watch." I pulled out my phone and opened the shelter's new social media page. The first post showed me in my cleaning uniform from yesterday, mopping floors, followed by the revelation at the gala. The caption read, "Change starts from the ground up. Join us in transforming animal welfare." It had already gone viral. By late afternoon, Marcus arrived with more news. "The press loves the story," he reported. "A wealthy heiress working undercover as a cleaning lady to expose mismanagement. It's gold. But more importantly, other shelters are reaching out. They want to implement similar changes." I was checking on a recovering cat when Sophie burst in. "Catherine, you need to see this." She led me to the front where a small crowd had gathered. Among them was Amanda, looking somewhat humbled. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, maybe I could volunteer. Actually work with the animals this time." The room fell silent, waiting for my response. I thought about all the times she'd looked down on others, all the harsh words and dismissive gestures. But I also thought about the message we wanted to send. "Everyone deserves a second chance," I said finally. "You can start this weekend cleaning kennels. Sophie will show you the ropes." As the day wound down, I sat in my office, no longer a showcase of expensive furniture, but a practical workspace with a dog bed in the corner, currently occupied by a three-legged rescue named Max. The shelter's new mission statement hung on the wall, "Where every life has value and every helper has worth." My phone buzzed with another message from Marcus. "Your grandmother would be proud." I looked out at the shelter floor, where volunteers and staff worked together, where Sophie was teaching Amanda the proper way to comfort a nervous dog, where the animals received the care they deserved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making things better. And sometimes the people who need the most help aren't just the ones with 4 legs, but those who've forgotten what it means to serve others. The Catherine Parker Animal Welfare Center would be a testament to that truth. One cleaned kennel, one saved animal, one changed heart at a time. Get your kids out now. Ashley needs the room for her 21st birthday party. My mother-in-law, Barbara, screamed, her face red with rage. I stared at her in disbelief, clutching my phone tighter as I tried to process what she was saying. My children, Emma, 8, and Lucas, 6, huddled together on their bed, their eyes wide with fear. Barbara, it's -2 degrees Fahrenheit outside, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Where exactly do you expect them to go? Not my problem, Sarah, she sneered. Ashley's friends are coming for her birthday weekend, and they need this space. Your brats can sleep in the garage or whatever. I'm Sarah Matthews, 34, and this nightmare was unfolding in what was supposed to be our temporary safe haven. 3 weeks ago, when our apartment's heating system completely failed during the worst winter storm in decades, Barbara had reluctantly offered to let us stay in her sprawling 5-bedroom house until repairs were completed. My husband, James, was away on a military deployment, and I was struggling to make ends meet with my teacher's salary. These are your grandchildren, I pleaded, watching Emma try to comfort her younger brother. James trusted you to help us while he's deployed. Barbara's laugh was cold and dismissive. James isn't here, is he? And Ashley is my real daughter. She deserves to have her perfect 21st birthday party. I've already promised her friends they can stay in this room. I looked around the small guest room that had become my children's temporary sanctuary. Their few belongings were neatly arranged. Emma's favorite stuffed elephant, Lucas's treasured toy cars, the family photo of us with James that they insisted on keeping by their bedside. The thought of them sleeping in an unheated garage made my blood run cold. Mom? Emma's voice quivered. Where are we going to sleep? Before I could answer, Barbara stormed over to their bed, grabbing their backpacks and starting to shove their belongings inside. Out, get out now. Ashley's friends will be here in 2 hours, and I need to clean this room. Lucas began to cry, and something inside me snapped. I stepped between Barbara and my children, my voice low and dangerous. Touch their things again, and I'm calling the police. Go ahead, she scoffed. This is my house. I can kick out whoever I want. Besides, who do you think they'll believe? Me, a respected member of the community, or you, a struggling teacher who can't even provide a proper home for her kids? I felt my hands trembling as I reached for my phone again. But this time I wasn't calling the police. Instead, I dialed Helen, James's sister, who lived about an hour away. As the phone rang, Barbara continued her tirade about Ashley's perfect party and how my children were ruining everything. Sarah? Helen's voice was warm and concerned. Is everything okay? No, I admitted, my voice cracking. Your mother is kicking us out. Ashley needs the room for her birthday party. It's below freezing, Helen. The kids? Pack their things, Helen interrupted, her tone shifting from warm to steely. I'm coming to get you. All of you. Barbara must have heard something in my voice change because she paused in her rampage, watching me suspiciously. What are you doing? Solving your problem, I replied calmly, too calmly. We're leaving, but make sure you take lots of pictures of Ashley's perfect party. I'm sure James would love to see them when he gets back. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Barbara's face. She hadn't thought about James's reaction, had she? Her golden child Ashley was all that mattered. As I helped Emma and Lucas pack their few belongings, my hands shook with a mixture of rage and fear. The children were silent, moving with the careful precision of kids who've learned to make themselves small and unobtrusive. It broke my heart to see them like this. Mommy, Lucas whispered as I zipped up his backpack, is Daddy going to be mad at us? No, baby, I assured him, pulling him close. None of this is your fault. Daddy loves you both so much. Barbara stood in the doorway, tapping her foot impatiently. Well, are you done yet? Ashley will be here soon, and this room is a mess. I didn't dignify her with a response. Instead, I focused on my children, making sure they were bundled up properly for the freezing weather. Emma held her brother's hand, trying to be brave, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. They'd already lost their home once this winter. Now they were being thrown out of what should have been their safe harbor. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made Barbara rush to the window. Oh, thank God. Ashley's here. Now you really need to. But it wasn't Ashley. Helen's SUV was parked outside, and James's sister was already storming up the front walk. her face set in lines of fury I'd never seen before. This was about to get interesting. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Ashley's car pulling up behind Helen's. Perfect timing. Now everyone would see exactly what kind of mother Barbara really was. As Helen's determined footsteps echoed through the house, I held my children close, knowing that while this chapter was ending badly, the story was far from over. Barbara's voice floated up from downstairs, shrill with fake concern. "Helen, what a surprise. What brings you here on this cold day?" Helen's response was too quiet to hear, but Barbara's sudden silence spoke volumes. The perfect birthday party was about to become something very different indeed. Helen's voice carried up the stairs, sharp as winter ice. "Where are they, Mom? Where are my brother's children?" I guided Emma and Lucas toward the staircase, our bags packed. Ashley stood in the foyer, surrounded by gift bags and decorations, her perfectly made-up face twisted in confusion. "Mom, what's going on? Why is Aunt Helen here?" Barbara wrung her hands, her earlier confidence evaporating. "Helen, darling, you don't understand. Ashley's friends are coming for her birthday celebration, and we needed the space." "Space?" Helen's laugh was bitter. "You have 5 bedrooms in this house. 5, and you're throwing your own grandchildren out into sub-zero weather for a party." Ashley's eyes widened as she finally understood. "Mom, you said Sarah and the kids were staying with friends. You said they left voluntarily." We reached the bottom of the stairs, and Helen immediately moved to embrace Emma and Lucas. The children clung to her, their small bodies shivering despite the house's warmth. Whether from fear or cold, I couldn't tell. "I've already video called James," Helen announced, and Barbara's face went pale. "He's trying to get emergency leave." Imagine his surprise when I told him his children were being thrown out of their grandmother's house for a birthday party. "You had no right," Barbara shrieked. "This is between me and Sarah." "No," I said, finding my voice at last. "This is about 2 innocent children who trusted their grandmother to protect them, who looked at you like you hung the moon, Barbara. Until today." Ashley dropped her gift bags, decorations forgotten. "Mom, this is horrible. They're just kids, and it's freezing outside." She turned to me, her face stricken. "Sarah, I swear I didn't know. She told me you found somewhere else to stay." "Of course you didn't know," Helen cut in. "Because if people knew what Mom was really like, her perfect reputation would crumble." Barbara's face twisted with rage. "Get out. All of you. This is my house, and I won't be judged in my own home." "Gladly," Helen replied. "But first," she pulled out her phone and started playing a video. James's voice filled the foyer, and Barbara froze. "Mom, how could you?" His voice was tight with controlled fury. "My children? Your own grandchildren? I trusted you to help them while I'm serving our country, and this is how you repay that trust." "James, sweetheart," Barbara stammered. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Helen, get them out of there. Sarah, take the kids to Helen's place. I'm coming home." Barbara collapsed onto the stairs, her carefully maintained facade cracking. "You can't come home. Your deployment." "Watch me," James's voice was steel. "And Mom, when I get back, we're going to have a long talk about family loyalty." The video ended, and silence fell over the foyer. Ashley was crying quietly, her perfect birthday thoroughly derailed. Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, is Daddy really coming home?" "Yes, baby, Daddy's coming home." Helen helped us load our bags into her SUV while Barbara watched from the doorway, still protesting weakly about Ashley's party and her reputation. As we pulled out of the driveway, I saw Ashley running after the car. Helen stopped. "Sarah, wait." Ashley called through my window. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. Can I come visit the kids at Aunt Helen's? They shouldn't lose their entire family because my mom is a monster," Helen supplied. "Helen," I admonished, but I couldn't help smiling slightly. To Ashley, I said, "The kids would like that. They love their Aunt Ashley." As we drove away, Lucas asked from the backseat, "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma love us?" My heart shattered. Helen caught my eye in the rearview mirror, and I saw tears tracking down her cheeks. "She loves her image more than her family, sweetheart," Helen answered when I couldn't. "But you have so many people who love you more than anything. Your mom, your dad, me, and even Aunt Ashley. We're your real family." Emma hugged her brother close. And we have sergeant trunks, she added, clutching her stuffed elephant. The drive to Helen's house was quiet, broken only by the children's occasional whispers and the steady hum of the heating system working overtime. My phone kept buzzing with messages from Barbara, ranging from angry demands to tearful apologies. I ignored them all. Helen's house wasn't as large as Barbara's, but it was warm in every way that mattered. As she helped us settle into her guest room, one she promised we could stay in as long as we needed, she showed me another message from James. Emergency leave approved. I'll be home in 72 hours. Mom just lost more than she knows. I love you all. Keep our babies safe. Looking at my children, already starting to relax in the safety of Helen's home, I knew Barbara had indeed lost more than she realized. She'd lost her son's respect, her grandchildren's trust, and any claim to being the perfect mother she pretended to be. Her perfect reputation wouldn't survive this winter storm. 3 days later, James arrived at Helen's house looking exhausted but determined. The moment he walked through the door, Emma and Lucas launched themselves into his arms, their tears of joy mixing with his own. "Daddy, you really came home." "Of course I did, Princess," he murmured into Emma's hair. "Nobody messes with my family." I hung back, letting the children have their moment, but James reached for me with his free arm, pulling me into the family embrace. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt truly safe. After the children were asleep that night, tucked into bed with extra blankets and their father's promise to be there when they woke, James, Helen, and I sat in the kitchen. Ashley had arrived earlier, bringing hot chocolate and tearful apologies. She'd been staying with friends, unable to face her mother after what happened. "Mom's losing it," Ashley reported, cradling her mug. "She's called everyone in her social circle, trying to spin the story her way. But Helen's video reached them first." James nodded grimly. "Good. Let her feel what it's like to be left out in the cold." "The heating in our apartment is fixed," I told him quietly. "We can go home tomorrow." "No," his voice was firm. "We're not going back to that apartment. I've already called a realtor. We're buying a house somewhere far from my mother's influence." "But James, we can't afford." "Yes, we can." He pulled out some papers. "Remember that inheritance from Dad's side of the family? The one Mom always said was too small to bother with? Well, I had it checked. She lied about that too. There's enough for a down payment and then some." Helen wasn't surprised. She's been lying about money for years, keeping everyone dependent on her so she could control us all. A knock at the door interrupted us. Through the window, we could see Barbara standing on the porch, wearing her finest coat and a look of practiced contrition. "Don't answer it," Ashley pleaded. "She'll just make everything worse." But James was already moving. He opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What do you want, Mom?" "James, darling," Barbara's voice dripped with honey. "I've come to take you all home. This silly misunderstanding has gone on long enough. What will people think?" "Misunderstanding?" James's voice was deadly quiet. "You threw my children out into freezing weather. For a party. I never would have really made them sleep in the garage." Barbara protested. "I just needed them out of the room for Ashley's friends." "Stop lying, Mom," Ashley called from behind us. "You've done enough damage." Barbara's face hardened when she saw her daughter. "Ashley, how dare you take their side? After everything I've done for you." "You mean after everything you've stolen from them to give to me?" Ashley shot back. "Helen told me about James's inheritance, about how you've been lying to all of us for years. I did what I had to do to keep this family together." "No," James cut in. "You did what you had to do to keep control. But that ends now." He pulled out his phone, showing her the screen. "See these bank statements, the trust fund documents? Your lies are exposed, Mom. All of them." Barbara swayed slightly, her perfect mask cracking. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." Helen appeared with a thick folder. "I've been documenting your financial manipulation for years. The only reason I stayed quiet was for James's sake. But when you put his children at risk, all bets were off." "What do you want?" Barbara whispered, finally realizing the depth of her situation. "Nothing," James replied. "We want nothing from you. Not your money, not your big house, not your manipulative version of love. We're done." But they're my grandchildren." "Not anymore," I spoke up, stepping forward. "You lost that privilege when you chose a party over their safety." Barbara turned to Ashley, her last hope. Darling, please. Goodbye, Mom. Ashley's voice shook but held firm. I'm staying with Helen until I find my own place. Away from you. James closed the door on Barbara's shocked face. Through the window, we watched her stumble back to her car, her world crumbling around her. Later that night, as James and I checked on the children one last time, Emma stirred in her sleep. Is Grandma still mad at us? She mumbled. No, sweetheart, James soothed, stroking her hair. Grandma's not part of our lives anymore. But you have so many people who love you. Aunt Helen, Aunt Ashley, Mommy, and me. And Sergeant Trunks, Emma added sleepily, clutching her elephant. And Sergeant Trunks, James agreed, smiling through his tears. As we closed their door, I leaned into my husband's embrace. Are you sure about cutting her off completely? She made her choice, he said firmly. She chose her image over her family. Now she can live with the consequences. Outside, snow began to fall again, but inside Helen's house, we were warm with the love of real family, the kind that protects each other, that chooses children over parties, that stands together against the cold. Barbara's perfect reputation lay in ruins, but our family had emerged stronger. Sometimes, I reflected, the worst storms bring the greatest clarity about what truly matters. The sharp pain in my abdomen was getting worse as I clutched my phone, trying to focus on the hotel manager's words through the post-surgery haze. Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry to disturb you, but your children have been crying for hours. Your sister-in-law left around 8 p.m., saying she'd be back shortly. It's now 2 a.m. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be lying in a hospital bed after emergency appendix surgery, listening to a stranger tell me my children had been abandoned in a Miami hotel room. My husband James was deployed overseas, and my sister-in-law, Madison, had insisted, on taking our kids, Emma, 7, and Lucas, 5, on what she called a fun beach weekend. They'll be fine with me, she'd said, rolling her eyes at my hesitation. Stop being such a helicopter mom. I've got this covered. That was before my appendix nearly burst, before Madison decided my children were cramping her style, and before I discovered just how little family meant to her. I'd started feeling sick the day after they left. By midnight, I was in emergency surgery. Madison had texted me a dismissive "hope I feel better" with a party emoji, assuring me the kids were having a blast. What she didn't mention was that she'd been leaving them alone in a hotel room while she bar-hopped with her friends. Your children are obviously distressed, the hotel manager, Mr. Torres, continued. Security footage shows your sister-in-law leaving with a group of people. She's ignored all our calls. I tried to sit up, fighting against the post-surgery pain. Are my children okay? Is someone with them? Our head of housekeeping, Mrs. Martinez, is sitting with them now. She has grandchildren their age and didn't want them to be alone. His voice softened. But Mrs. Parker, we need to know how to proceed. Should we contact child services? My heart raced. Child services, the words every parent dreads hearing. But I had a better idea. Mr. Torres, could you hold for just a moment? I need to make a quick call. I hung up and immediately dialed another number, praying she would answer at this hour. After 3 rings, a familiar voice came through. Olivia? What's wrong, sweetheart? Margaret, I said, relief flooding through me at the sound of my mother-in-law's voice. Not James's stepmother, who had raised Madison to be just like her, but his biological mother, the woman who had been there for every important moment in our children's lives. I need your help. As I explained the situation, Margaret's warm voice turned to steel. Text me the hotel details. I'm on my way to the airport now. And Olivia? Don't worry about Madison. I'll handle my ex-husband's spoiled princess. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison. OMG, these guys are taking us to their yacht. Might crash there tonight. Kids are fine. They have TV and room service. Stop being so uptight. Attached was a photo of her in a skimpy dress, champagne in hand, surrounded by strangers on what looked like a club rooftop. My hands shook with anger as I forwarded the text to Margaret. The entitlement of that girl, Margaret muttered. I've watched her and her mother take advantage of your kindness for too long. Remember last Christmas when they tried to convince James you were too controlling because you wouldn't let them take the kids to Aspen for a month? I did remember. Just like I remembered every other time Madison had tried to undermine my parenting. always with the same excuse. I just want to give them the fun their mom never lets them have. Mr. Torres was still holding on my other line. I switched back to him, my voice stronger now. Sir, my mother-in-law, Margaret Parker, will be there in approximately 3 hours. She's booked on the next flight from Atlanta. Could you please make sure my children know their grandmother is coming? Of course, Mrs. Parker. And regarding your sister-in-law. When she returns, I said, a calm settling over me. Please ensure she knows that she's no longer authorized to access the room or my children. In fact, I paused, thinking of all the times I kept quiet for the sake of family peace. Please have security escort her out if she tries. After hanging up, I lay back against the hospital pillows, my surgical incision throbbing. I thought about Emma and Lucas, probably scared and confused, wondering why their aunt had left them alone. Madison had always treated them like accessories, cute when convenient, burdensome when they interfered with her plans. My phone buzzed again. A message from Margaret. Just boarded. Olivia, it's time we showed Madison that actions have consequences. I've already called her father, and for once in his life, he agrees. This ends now. She was right. This was going to end, but not quietly. Not this time. As I closed my eyes, trying to rest until the next update, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had made me save the hotel manager's business card. Their security cameras were about to tell a story that would change everything. Margaret's voice was steady when she called at 5 a.m. I've got them, Olivia. They're safe. I could hear Emma and Lucas in the background, their tired voices brightening at the sight of their grandmother. But you need to see something. I'm having Mr. Torres send you the security footage. Minutes later, my phone pinged with a video link. The timestamp showed 7:45 p.m. Madison practically dragging my children back to their room after dinner. Just watch TV or whatever. Her voice was sharp with irritation. Emma's small voice asked when she'd be back. Madison gave a dismissive wave as she walked out, designer purse swinging. Stop being so needy. God, you're just like your mother. The next clip showed her returning at 11 p.m., clearly intoxicated, stumbling into the room with a group of strangers. Shah, she giggled. My boring sister-in-law's kids are sleeping. They raided the minibar, ran up room service charges on my credit card, and left again, leaving the door barely latched. The children woke up scared around 1 a.m., Mr. Torres explained in his accompanying email. Our night manager found them crying in the hallway. They couldn't reach their aunt, and the room door had locked behind them when they went looking for her. My hands shook with rage as I watched the timestamp jump to 2 a.m. My children huddled with the kind-hearted Mrs. Martinez, while Madison's Instagram story showed her partying on some stranger's yacht, completely unbothered. I've never seen James so angry, Margaret continued. I sent him the footage. He's making calls from overseas right now. His commanding officer is helping him arrange emergency leave. Just then, another call came through. Madison. I switched lines, putting her on speaker so Margaret could hear. What the actual hell, Olivia? She slurred. The hotel security won't let me in. My stuff is in there. Where were you, Madison? My voice was ice. Out, living my life. I'm not some boring mom who can't have fun. Your kids are fine, they're just spoiled and. They're 7 and 5 years old. The fury I've been containing finally broke. You left them alone in a hotel room while you partied with strangers. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. This is why nobody likes you, Olivia. You're just jealous because I know how to have a good time. James always says. James always says what? Margaret's voice cut through, sharp and clear. Madison fell silent. Please finish that sentence, Margaret demanded. I'd love to hear what my son supposedly says about his wife while he's serving overseas. Mom? Madison's voice went small. I didn't know you were. Clearly, Margaret said. Just like you didn't know that hotel security cameras record everything, or that child endangerment is a criminal offense, or that your father is on his way to Miami right now, and for once he's not coming to rescue you. I could hear Madison's sharp intake of breath. Her father, Richard, had always swooped in to save her from consequences, writing checks and making excuses. But abandoning children, even he had his limits. The police want to talk to you, Margaret continued. Your choice whether that happens at the hotel or after they track you down. Madison's voice turned wheedling. Come on, it's not that serious. Olivia's just being dramatic because she's jealous. I was giving the kids a fun weekend. They're safe, aren't they? Nothing happened. Nothing happened, I repeated slowly, because the hotel staff had more concern for my children than their own aunt. Nothing happened because Mrs. Martinez sat with them for hours while you were out with strangers. Nothing happened by pure luck, Madison. But something's about to happen now. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Margaret answered, that it's time to grow up. The yacht party's over. After we hung up, Margaret sent me a photo of my children, finally sleeping peacefully in the hotel room's big bed. Rest, Olivia, she said gently. Focus on healing. I've got the kids, the police have the footage, and Madison. Well, she's about to learn that some things even Daddy can't fix. I dozed off in my hospital bed, waking to a flurry of notifications. Madison had been picked up by hotel security trying to sneak into the building through a service entrance. Her father had arrived to find her sitting in the hotel's security office. Mascara streaked down her face, still in her party dress from the night before. Your stepmother's on her way too, Margaret updated me. Catherine's furious. Apparently Madison maxed out her credit cards buying rounds of champagne for her new yacht friends last night. The yacht that turned out to be a rental, by the way, belonging to some social media wannabes with fake followers. I thought about Catherine, Madison's mother and James's stepmother, who had always encouraged her daughter's entitled behavior, who had criticized my parenting at every turn, calling me controlling and boring. I wondered what she would say now. A text from James popped up. I'm coming home. This ends now. I love you. I closed my eyes, exhausted but relieved. For years, I tried to maintain peace, to be the bigger person, to give Madison chance after chance for the sake of family harmony. But she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She had put my children at risk, and no amount of Daddy's money or stepmom's excuses could make that right. Mr. Torres sent one final security clip, Madison being escorted out by police, her father's face set in stone as he watched, for once not stepping in to save her. Your children are my responsibility, she screamed at the cameras. I was just having fun. No, I thought, watching her meltdown. My children were never your responsibility. They were your opportunity to prove you could think of someone besides yourself. And you failed. 3 months after the Miami incident, I sat in our backyard watching Emma and Lucas play with their dad. James had extended his leave to be with us, his commanding officer understanding the gravity of what had happened. The sound of their laughter was healing. It had taken weeks of gentle conversations and reassurance for them to stop asking if they'd done something wrong, if that was why Aunt Madison had left them alone. Madison herself was facing consequences she'd never imagined. The hotel had pressed charges for damages and theft. Apparently, she'd helped herself to items from other guests' rooms during her drunken visits. The police had body cam footage of her behavior during the arrest, which didn't help her case. But the biggest blow came from her father. I'm done, Richard had said during a family meeting 2 weeks after the incident. No more excuses, no more checkbook parenting. He froze in her accounts, stopped paying her rent, and insisted she get professional help. For once, he was acting like a father instead of an ATM. Catherine, on the other hand, was still trying to minimize the situation. They're making too much of this, she'd insisted, showing up at our house uninvited. Madison was just having fun. Young people need to live a little. James had calmly shown her out, his military bearing never wavering. Young people need to live, Mom. Children need to feel safe. If you can't understand the difference, you don't need to be around my family. A text from Margaret pulled me back to the present. You won't believe what Madison just posted. I opened Instagram to find a lengthy post, Madison's first public acknowledgement of what she'd done. I've spent 3 months in intensive therapy, she wrote, facing hard truths about who I've been and the people I've hurt. To my niece and nephew, I'm sorry. To my sister-in-law, I'm sorry. My actions were inexcusable. Do you think she means it? I asked James later, showing him the post. He wrapped an arm around me thoughtful. Maybe. Dad's finally stopped enabling her. She's working as a receptionist now, living in a tiny apartment, taking a bus instead of getting Ubers everywhere. Real life has a way of changing perspectives. The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Martinez, the hotel housekeeper who'd stayed with our children that night. She'd become an unexpected blessing in our lives, visiting whenever her daughter's family came to town. Emma ran to hug her, all traces of that traumatic night erased by new, better memories. Madison called me, Mrs. Martinez said over coffee. She wanted to thank me for taking care of the children. She was crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative ones from that night. I nodded, remembering how Madison had turned on the waterworks at the police station, trying to convince them it was all a misunderstanding. It hadn't worked. The security footage told the real story. The hotel is using our case for staff training, Mrs. Martinez continued. Mr. Torres says it's a perfect example of why we have protocols for unaccompanied minors. They've even strengthened their security measures. Later that evening, as I tucked the kids into bed, Emma asked the question I'd been expecting. Is Aunt Madison ever coming back? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. Aunt Madison is learning some important lessons right now. If she shows us she's really changed, if she proves she can be trusted, maybe one day. But not until Daddy and I are completely sure you'll be safe. Sometimes I look at the security footage from that night, not to relive the trauma, but to remind myself why boundaries matter. The last clip shows Mrs. Martinez reading to my crying children, proving that sometimes strangers can be more family than family itself. But it also shows how one night of selfish choices can change everything: relationships, reputations, futures. Madison learned that lesson the hard way. And my children? They learned that their parents and grandmother would always protect them, even if it meant standing up to people who thought family was a get-out-of-jail-free card. Some wounds take time to heal. Some trust may never fully return. But we're stronger now, wiser about who we let into our children's lives. And somewhere in Miami, a hotel's security cameras are still recording, ready to protect the next vulnerable person who needs someone to notice, someone to care, someone to say, "This isn't right. They just have colds. Stop being so dramatic." My mother-in-law, Diana, scoffed, applying another layer of lipstick while checking her reflection in my hallway mirror. Behind her, my sister-in-law, Madison, was bouncing excitedly, clutching VIP passes to meet some reality TV star I'd never heard of. I stood my ground, arms crossed. The twins have 102-degree fevers. They need constant monitoring and their next dose of medicine in 2 hours. I can't leave the hospital any sooner. One of my patients is in critical condition. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I'm a pediatric surgeon who usually has everything under control. But today, with my 5-year-old twins sick and my husband James away at a medical conference, I was forced to rely on my in-laws for help. A decision I would soon regret. Oh please, Madison rolled her eyes, adjusting her designer outfit. They're sleeping anyway. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Skylar James is only doing one meet and greet in the city. The twins' coughing echoed from their bedroom, followed by weak calls for water. I moved to check on them, but Diana blocked my path. "We've got this," she insisted, waving me away. "You're being overprotective. Kids get sick all the time. When Madison was little, I let her play in the rain with pneumonia, and she turned out fine." I stared at her, horrified. That's not something to brag about. Look, I've written down their medication schedule, emergency contacts, and— Yes. Diana interrupted, snatching the paper from my hand and tossing it on the counter without even glancing at it. "We know how to take care of children. Now go save lives or whatever it is you do." I hesitated at the door, every maternal and medical instinct screaming at me not to leave. But with an emergency surgery scheduled and no other options for childcare, I had to trust they'd at least follow basic instructions. "Promise me you'll stay with them," I pressed, looking both women in the eye. "They really are sick." "We promise," Madison chirped, already taking selfies with her VIP pass. "Now go, you're going to be late." 4 hours later, in the middle of post-op notes, my phone lit up with a call from Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor. My heart stopped when I saw her name. "Olivia." Her usually gentle voice was sharp with concern. "I've been hearing your twins crying for the past hour." I knocked, but no one's answering. Aren't Diana and Madison supposed to be watching them? I gripped my desk, knuckles turning white. "You mean they're not there?" "No, dear, but I keep hearing coughing and crying. The poor things sound miserable." I was already grabbing my keys, emergency surgery forgotten. "Mrs. Chen, I'm 40 minutes away. Can you use the spare key I gave you? Please check on them. I'm calling 911 right now." "Of course I'm going in now." Oh, her gasp made my blood run cold. "Those irresponsible, Olivia. They're burning up." And there's vomit on the beds. Hold on. I'm calling an ambulance. I was running to my car, phone pressed to my ear as I dialed James. The sound of my twins crying in the background of Mrs. Chen's call would haunt me forever. Then my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. My hands shook as I saw Madison's latest post, a beaming selfie with some reality star, timestamped just 15 minutes ago. The caption read, "Dreams do come true. Best day ever with my amazing mom. Hashtag VIP status, hashtag Skylar Jinx, hashtag worth it." Worth it. They'd abandoned my desperately ill children for a photo opportunity, and they were bragging about it being worth it. I switched to my messages, firing off a text to both of them. Emergency room. Now, and you better pray my children are okay. Madison responded instantly. OMG, don't be so dramatic. We were only gone for like 2 hours. They were sleeping when we left. I couldn't even process her casualness about leaving 5-year-olds alone, let alone sick ones. Diana chimed in. This is exactly why we didn't tell you our plans. You overreact to everything. They're fine. But they weren't fine. By the time I reached the emergency room, both twins had fevers of 104.5. Severe dehydration, no medication for hours. The doctors were already starting IV fluids when I arrived, Mrs. Chen still by their side because she refused to leave them alone again. Mommy, Sophie whimpered when she saw me, her usually rosy face pale and tear-stained. Next to her, Sam was half asleep, his breathing raspy. I'm here, babies, I choked out, gathering them both carefully in my arms. Mommy's here now, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. As I held my children, watching nurses hook up medications and fluids, my phone kept buzzing with messages from Diana and Madison. Excuses, accusations, guilt trips, I silenced them all. They had no idea what was coming. While my twins fought fevers that could have caused seizures or worse, I was already planning exactly how to ensure my in-laws would face consequences for their actions. The hospital security cameras showing exactly when they arrived. The timestamped social media posts proving where they'd been instead. Mrs. Chen's call to emergency services. The doctor's reports detailing the dangerous condition my children were found in. Diana and Madison thought they could explain this away, like they had with so many other irresponsible decisions. But they were about to learn that a mother's patience has limits, and they had just found mine. Diana and Madison burst into the pediatric ward like they owned it, still dressed in their meet and greet outfits, reeking of expensive perfume. Where are our babies? Diana demanded, trying to push past me to the twins' room. I blocked her path, my voice cold and steady. Your babies? You mean the ones you abandoned with dangerous fevers to meet a D-list celebrity? Madison stepped forward, phone in hand. Look, we got you his autograph. We were trying to do something nice. And they're fine, aren't they? Fine. I pulled up the medical chart on my tablet. Temperature, 104.5. Severe dehydration, respiratory distress. They could have had seizures. Does that sound fine to you? Oh, stop being so dramatic. Diana waved dismissively. When Madison was young, you were a neglectful mother. And now you've proven you're just as neglectful as a grandmother. Their jaws dropped at my bluntness. Behind me, I heard James arriving. He caught the first flight back when I called him. Mom? Madison? What were you thinking? His voice was heavy with disappointment as he took in the scene. You left my children alone while they were sick. They weren't alone, Madison protested. They had each other. The absurdity of her statement hung in the air. James looked at his sister like he was seeing her for the first time. They're 5 years old, Madison. 5, and seriously ill. Well, maybe if your wife wasn't so controlling about babysitters, we would have had other options. Diana snapped. You mean the qualified babysitters I offered to arrange? I countered. The ones you insisted you didn't need because, and I quote, we're family, we know best. James put his arm around me, his body tense with anger. You need to leave. Now, both of you. But we brought presents. Madison held up a shopping bag. Signed merchandise. The twins will love it. Get out. James's voice was quiet but firm. The hospital has security footage of when you left and when the ambulance arrived. The doctors have documented everything. And Mrs. Chen filed a police report. Diana's face went pale. A police report? For what? Child endangerment, I said calmly. Abandonment of minors. The detective wants to speak with you both. You called the police on family? Madison shrieked, drawing looks from the hospital staff. How could you? The same way you could abandon sick children for a celebrity photo op, I replied, easily. Diana grabbed her daughter's arm, finally sensing the gravity of the situation. We're leaving, but this isn't over. You can't prove anything. I held up my phone, showing Madison's Instagram post. Really? Because your daughter already documented everything. Timestamped photos of where you were. Captions about how it was worth it. The detective found it very interesting. They fled the ward, Diana practically dragging Madison, who was already crying about how we were ruining her social media career. James turned to me, his face etched with guilt. I'm so sorry. I should have known they couldn't be trusted. We both should have known, I admitted. But now we do. And they're about to learn that actions have consequences. The consequences came swiftly. The detective's interview was damning. Diana and Madison's social media posts provided a clear timeline of their negligence. The hospital documentation showed just how serious the twins' condition had become. But what really sealed their fate was their own attitude. Instead of apologizing, they doubled down. Madison kept posting about being unfairly attacked by jealous haters. Diana called every family member, spinning tales about how I was destroying the family over just a little outing. They didn't expect Mrs. Chen to have recorded her calls for help, or for the hospital to have security footage of them sneaking out hours earlier than they claimed, or for their social media bragging to be used against them in official reports. James stood by me through all of it, his faith in his mother and sister finally shattered. When they showed up at our house unannounced, demanding we drop the charges, he was the one who called the police to have them removed. You're choosing her over your own mother? Diana had screamed as officers escorted her off our property. No, James replied calmly. I'm choosing my children's safety over your entitlement. The twins recovered slowly, still asking why Grandma and Aunt Madison left them alone. We tried to explain in terms they could understand, but how do you tell 5-year-olds that their grandmother and aunt cared more about meeting a celebrity than their well-being? The family was in upheaval. Some relatives sided with Diana and Madison, claiming we were overreacting. Others, who had witnessed their entitled behavior for years, stood with us. But we didn't care about sides anymore. This wasn't about family drama. It was about protecting our children from people who had proven they couldn't be trusted with their safety. As I tucked the twins into bed a week later, their fevers finally gone, Sophie asked a question that broke my heart. Mommy, did we do something bad? Is that why he left us? I gathered her close, Sam snuggling in on my other side. No, sweethearts, you did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices and then they have to face consequences for those choices. Like timeout? Sam asked sleepily. Something like that. I smiled, kissing their foreheads. But I promise you, Mommy and Daddy will never let anyone hurt you like that again. And we meant it. Diana and Madison were about to learn that their perfect day, meeting a reality star, had cost them something far more precious. And this time, there would be no coming back from it. The court date arrived on a crisp autumn morning. I sat beside James in the courtroom, watching Diana and Madison enter with their lawyer. They traded their usual flashy outfits for conservative suits, trying to project an image of responsibility that their actions had long since shattered. Madison couldn't resist checking her phone one last time before the judge entered. Her social media campaigns to paint herself as the victim had backfired spectacularly. Every post about being persecuted was met with screenshots of her bragging about abandoning sick children for a celebrity meetup. All rise, the bailiff called. The proceedings were surprisingly quick. The evidence was overwhelming. Hospital records, security footage, social media posts, Mrs. Chen's recordings, and their own damning text messages. Their lawyer tried to paint it as a simple misunderstanding. Your Honor, my clients merely went out for a brief period, believing the children were sleeping safely. A brief period. The judge interrupted, reviewing the timeline. Security cameras show they left at 1:15 p.m. The ambulance wasn't called until 5:45 p.m. That's nearly 5 hours they left critically ill kindergartners alone. Diana stood up, unable to contain herself. We checked on them through the nanny cam. The nanny cam that shows you watching them cry through your phones and doing nothing. The prosecutor asked, The one that recorded you saying, and I quote, "They're fine. We can't miss this opportunity over a little fever." I felt James tense beside me. He hadn't known about that part. The judge had heard enough. In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen many cases of negligence, but few show such willful disregard for children's safety. The sentence came down hard. Diana and Madison both received probation, mandatory parenting classes, and community service. But more importantly, a restraining order barred them from unsupervised contact with the twins. "But they're my grandchildren," Diana wailed. "You can't keep them from me." "Your Honor," Madison jumped in, "my social media career will be ruined. I have sponsorships." The judge's gaze was steel. "Perhaps you should have considered that before prioritizing a photo opportunity over children's lives." Outside the courthouse, they tried one last time to approach us. "You've destroyed this family," Diana accused, tears running down her expertly made-up face. "Are you happy now?" "No, Mom," James replied quietly. "You destroyed it yourself. Every time you put your wants above my children's needs. Every time you dismissed our concerns. Every time you proved we couldn't trust you." "We can change," Madison pleaded. "Just drop the restraining order. My followers keep unfollowing me because of this." I looked at her, really looked at her. "That's exactly why this was necessary. You're still more worried about your social media than what you did to Sam and Sophie." "They're just kids," she protested. "They won't even remember this." "But we will," James said firmly. "Every fever, every time they're sick, we'll remember who abandoned them when they needed help most." "Goodbye, Mom." Madison. He took my hand and we walked away, leaving them calling after us. Their voices faded as we drove home to our children, who were being watched by a qualified nanny we'd finally hired. The twins were better now, back to their energetic selves. They still asked about Grandma and Aunt Madison sometimes, but less often as weeks passed. We'd found a child therapist to help them process the abandonment, turning it into a lesson about trust and safety rather than letting it become a trauma. 6 months later, I was organizing the twins' art supplies when I found Sophie's family drawing from school. Diana and Madison weren't in it. When I asked her about it, she shrugged. "They're not our family anymore, Mommy. They made bad choices." Out of the mouths of babes. Diana still tried to make contact occasionally, sending flying monkeys from the family to plead her case. "They've learned their lesson," they'd say. "The restraining order is too harsh." But we stood firm. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about protecting our children from people who had proven they couldn't be trusted with their safety. James's cousin Amy, who had sided with us from the start, told us that Diana and Madison had created a new narrative. They were the victims of an overprotective mother who turned their son/brother against them. They never acknowledged their actions, never truly apologized, never showed real remorse. "You know what that means," James said when he heard this. "We made the right decision." A year after the incident, we moved to a new house in a different neighborhood. The twins started kindergarten, made new friends, and thrived in an environment free from toxic family dynamics. Diana and Madison's probation would eventually end. The restraining order would need to be renewed. But some things were permanent, like our understanding that sometimes the hardest choices are the most necessary ones. The twins' 6th birthday party was filled with laughter, friends, and family who had proven they deserved to be in their lives. No drama, no guilt trips, no Instagram posts, just genuine love and celebration. As I watched Sophie and Sam blow out their candles, surrounded by people who truly cared about their well-being, I knew we'd given them something more valuable than a so-called perfect family. We'd given them safety, security, and the knowledge that their parents would always protect them, no matter what. Sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into or marry into. It's the one you choose to build, one boundary at a time.